What's happening, folks? Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. It is time for the preview show for Sunday's big game at Ibrox against Rangers. Callum has joined me for this one. Callum, it's finally here. We've been looking forward to it for probably the best part of a month or so, counting down to this game. It's the penultimate game before the split, only St Johnstone after this. I just want to start though, we always talk about how big these derbies are every time they come around, but finish the sentence, this is the biggest derby since when?
Very good question, Paul. Thinking about all the derbies, they're all as big as each other, and that famous quote is the next one's the biggest one. It feels like that. This Sunday, it's going to be everything that you can think of what's in these derbies usually. There's lots of chaos, sometimes there's lots of goals, lots of bookings, there's lots of stuff. It's feeling a big one. It definitely feels it. It's probably the biggest derby going back to probably 2019 in the cup final, and that was off the back of 3 trebles. We were going for our first cup again in December, the League Cup. Rangers, I don't think, had got to a final before that point, and that was their first final, and it was a real big momentum shift on where it would go. And I remember leading up to it, the pressure was massive on that week leading up to it. I mean, we get battered that day. We got battered, but we still won, and that's all that matters. So I would probably go back to that was probably the biggest one. The week building up to it was huge. They always are, to be fair, but that one, because it was 190 minutes, it didn't really have an effect over the season. It was the one game, who's going to be the best and who can take it. And then leading up to it, we had the big problem with Edward. He was touch and go at that point, I remember, and we ended up starting with Lewis Morgan
up front. Who could forget that?
So to be going into that game, I remember the nerves that I felt and the pressure going, it's Lewis Morgan up front, and we had done that in previous games when Mikey Johnson had started up front and we had lost. So the feeling of it leading up to the game, everything involved, it was.
See, just on that, mate, I was talking on the way to making this video, and I was saying, how long has it been since we've had a full strength squad going into one of these games? It seems like years, and we'll come on to talking about the squads and injuries shortly. But we are now going into this game on Sunday. The manager's confirmed it today with everyone fit apart for James Forrest. That is the strongest we've went into one of these games for a long time.
Oh, well, you're saying that it's nearly 3 years, if I'm wrong. That it's the first time we've had fans at Ibrox. 3 years. It's
September 2019, wasn't it?
Where does time went? We won 2-0 that day. So there's a lot of stuff that's big, that feels. This is why it's that famous phrase of the next game is the biggest one, and it truly is. But this one stands out for so many different reasons, and I know we'll cover it. But the news breaking today and I know it's April Fools, I know that, but when you're watching and listening to this, is we have huge news of the man up there. He's back, and they've also lost their main man. And there feels like a real shift on momentum before the game's even started. And that feels maybe silly to say because it doesn't really have a massive effect on the game leading up. But that seed, knowing that you don't have your best player going into that game, you want to be standing in the tunnel having all your best players next to you. And that's massive to have Kyle go back. He'll probably start on the bench. But then to come up against them and not have probably their star man as they see. Maybe he's not been the star man in these games at times, but he's crucial to the way that they play, and it feels massive leading up to it. Obviously, this is Friday, 2 days to go, and to hear that news, there feels like a lot of people on our side are buzzing, are ready for this game, and it feels a little bit on the other side as if they're not really wanting this game to happen. If they could get it cancelled, they'd probably want it cancelled.
Aye, big news in terms of the teams. I feel like in the run up to these games all the time, there's so many cliches that get thrown around with these games more than most. One of them is that form goes out the window. People talk about it all the time. I think in recent years it's kept to form almost, if you think about the recent results of it. Celtic's form right now is fantastic. 25 match unbeaten run in the league. Haven't lost since that game at Livingston back in September. We're playing really, really well just now. And the intensity since the turn of the year has been remarkable, hasn't it?
It's from, if you really, really think of where we've came from at the start of the season, we were, Hugh Keevans put us down third position. Third position he put us down at the start. And I know it back then, we looked a mess, we looked a shambles, but we were always going to get the house in order at some point. Who knew that it would be this quick? I probably never have guessed that we would be here, and probably going 6 points clear if we can win. I didn't ever think that would be realistic. I thought, let's have a title race, let's push them all the way, and then we'll see where we are at the end of the season. To go into this game with the chance to go 6 points clear, it pretty much puts at least more than a hand, I would say, on the title. I'm not really one for giving it that, because every game's just important, and the lead up to every game, if you win on Sunday but then you lose, our next game is St Johnstone, you would think it would cause chaos, because you would think these are the easier games that you should win. So every game's going to be massive, but it's just the whole pressure and the whole game. I can feel it right now. Like, I don't know how you're feeling, but everybody's feeling this way, and there just seems to be something under Ange. Speaking for myself, is that you trust him. Mm-hmm. Like, you buy into what he's doing, you buy into his philosophy, the way he speaks. Every word is just so elegantly put. He's the real leader of the club, of maybe what we haven't had, maybe since the Rodgers days. Like, it feels like that a little bit going into these games. I feel confident going to Ibrox. I don't really fear it at all. I feel like we are the team in form, but as you say, form doesn't always matter. It's really who wants it on that day. And when you look back to obviously the game in February, it's if we can replicate that performance, the league's done.
Just on Ange there, the club obviously launched the season ticket renewal campaign yesterday. Did you see the speech before the cup final?
They
knew what they were doing with that one, didn't they?
Oh, it was brilliant, because it just gets you like, right, have my wallet, there's my money. Like, to be fair to the people in there, a lot of folk are going to renew it. And I think if we don't win the league, a lot of fans need to remember where we have been to where we are now. It's
you can see the progress, mate, big time.
Massively, and I don't ever think that somebody would say, do you know what, I'm not going to renew my season ticket because of we've not won the league. We've already won one trophy. And to a lot of fans, that probably wasn't going to happen. A lot of people thought that Rangers were going to possibly win a treble this year. They were strong from when we started in August to obviously how we started in August. But Ange is just he sums up the right person that you want in charge of Celtic. You always want the next person who's in charge of Celtic to be that guy. Don't be somebody that takes the club for granted. Know what the supporters want. Be in line with supporters, and they'll follow. And that's exactly what you're seeing right now. A team that were last season's antics off the field weren't great to see against Lennon. People have their own opinions and rights, whatever, but you still don't like to see it. For a guy to come in for the other side of the world, we chased Eddie Howe. Everybody was probably against him, but when he comes in, you support and you back them. But you probably didn't think that he was going to be as good as what he has been. And fair play to the board that have obviously sounded them out and got him in.
Aye, let's go back to that last meeting, 2nd of February. What a game it was. What an atmosphere. We started that game, as we have done most of our league games since the turn of the year, 100 mile an hour. We won the game in the first half. The intensity that I talked about earlier on was there for everybody to see, and we blew Rangers away. The start in these games, again, to come back to another one of the cliches, the start's so important. That's going to be a challenge this time, because we're away from home. We're against the atmosphere this time instead of with it. We're still going to go with the same approach. Do you think we can quieten the crowd and take control of the game early, because that's going to be important?
Well, where the confidence comes from, in my opinion, is that Celtic went to Ibrox. Was it August? Right at the end of August, or maybe the start of September the game was. We only lost 1-0. And if you remember, Kyogo had a great chance to square Christie, and then vice versa. Christie had a great chance to give to Kyogo. Celtic probably should have got a result that day. And when you look back to our team that day, Juranovic started at left back on his debut, who was superb. I think he got man of the match. It was brilliant. We started with Furuhashi out in the left. We started with Edward, Abada.
Christie played in midfield.
Christie midfield, McGregor and Turnbull. So you'll now look at the team. The team's transpired into a very, very well-oiled machine that knows their roles now, that back then probably never knew, was still learning what they had to learn to become an Ange Postecoglou team. And we only lost 1-0, and it's probably to our Achilles heel, was to a set piece. Hollander out-jumped Starfelt that day and gets the goal, but there wasn't really much in that game. And if you remember that day, that there was no Celtic fans in the stadium. It was 50,000 right against us. There was no colour for us in that sense of support. This time there's going to be in that corner. And I just think that I don't really see us collapsing. like the way they collapsed at Celtic Park. I just don't. And I'll explain why I don't think that. I don't think that because Celtic have shown already away to Europe, tough places, that teams that are better quality probably than Rangers, we can give them a run for their money. Now people will say to that, oh, he's lost in Leverkusen, he's lost in Betis. That's fair dues, we did, but we were still young in that stage and we were still finding our feet. And then you get teams like Ferencváros that we go and win and we score 3 goals. So what's that, 8 goals that we scored away from home in 3 pretty tough European games, considering we don't travel very well in Europe. So they're tough venues. So Celtic have been tested at tough venues and have shown that they can compete. So for me, they're going to compete on Sunday. There's no question. Celtic won't change their way of play just because Rangers, if anything, they'll change their way because they're also used to being at home and battering teams. Teams sit deep. They'll be in for a shock when they don't see Celtic sitting in deep and saying, right, come and break us down. It won't happen. As soon as they get the ball and they'll go up, we'll counter. And that's just the way that Ange teams are. And that's why so many fans are buying into what he's doing, is because they love the philosophy. They love what they're seeing on the pitch. We've got a brand. We've got a style. I don't really think you can say that across the city. I don't really know what their brand and style is. They're still winning games, so that's all that matters. But on the long haul, where are you going on the journey? Everybody can see where Andrew's taking us. I don't really know if you can see where Giovanni's taking Rangers. So I think that's going to be a major factor on this game and this result, and then which will have a massive factor on obviously the league title.
See, just on that, in terms of the approach that Ange takes to every game, in his interview with Optus, Mark Schwarzer, Optus Sport, recently, he talked about speaking to someone that knows Ange in Germany and him asking him, how are you going to approach this Leverkusen game after getting thumped 4-0 at Celtic Park? And he says, we're going to approach it the same way we do every game. So there's a lot of talking into this game. How will we approach it? Because a draw is a good result for us, given how the league table is currently sitting. We are 3 points clear. We've got a much superior goal difference. So if we were to take a point for this game on Sunday, it's a good result for us. And so as fans, I think we start to discuss that and we go, oh, we'd take a draw. So do you think that would change our approach? Our approach is not going to change. The manager said it a million times. We're going to approach this game the same way we've approached every single game this season. And that's come back to that point you make about identity. You also talked about the fans. The last time we went to Ibrox, the allocation for the first round of fixtures, one at Ibrox, one at Celtic Park, was no away fans. We're just going to watch back your reaction to that after the game at Celtic Park.
I never, ever want to go back to any Rangers fans in this ground. I was one for 8,000 or whatever it was, and I love the atmosphere. Never again. I hope Celtic tonight put a message out saying that's it, it's done. No away fans, never again. Paul, honestly, mate, I know I might be getting carried away in the emotion. The atmosphere tonight was one of the best I've ever experienced. Don't let them in.
So this time round, obviously, there is going to be 700 Celtic fans. You said September 2019, the last time we had fans there. How do you feel about the ticket allocations now? I feel like it's been talked to death. People keep asking me in the comments, what do you think about the ticket situation? I'm just fed up with the whole debate, but have you changed your opinion since that game in February?
It's bored me, if I'm honest. It's just bored me, the whole drag out of the whole situation between Celtic and Rangers and tit for tat and who was it that done it first. The quickest point is Rangers done this because out of spite. They didn't want to see Celtic celebrating the way they were and tying scarves around the posts. It comes with it. Rangers done it back in the 90s when they done the huddle at Celtic Park. Celtic never spat the dummy out and says, right, you're not getting any fans in. It's one of these things that Celtic and Rangers both have times where they dominate in Scotland, and that's pretty much just the play of which happens is when you dominate, you're going to celebrate. And to your question, do I want it to change? That's a very difficult question because thinking back to that moment when I came out of the stadium, I didn't want any fans in.
What an atmosphere that night, wasn't it?
It's probably, honestly, it's probably the best atmosphere I've experienced at Celtic Park. I've experienced like AC Milan nights, Barcelona nights, obviously big derby nights as well, like Vennegoor Hessellink's last minute winner. I've experienced all different things like that, but that atmosphere on that night, there was something just that clicked, that worked. But at the same time, when I think back to all the moments of when Rangers first came up and we beat them 5-1 under Mark Warburton and we beat them, that atmosphere was crazy as well. It was ridiculous. And the colour there, I think Rangers brought 7,500, 8,000 and they all had flags with them as well, and it just added to that atmosphere. So I don't really know. Would I be pleased if they says, right, no fans at all? I probably would be. I'd be content, and I'd say, do you know what? It doesn't bother me. I get home quicker because I walk down that way. So having to go around the long way to get back to my car and stuff, it's a nightmare at times. But if they were to turn around and go, right, we're going back to the original allocation, I also wouldn't fuss as well, because it does bring colour and it brings atmosphere. So I think for the neutral watching it, it's boring. Probably if there's no atmosphere and there's no, because that's what the game's known for. It's not known for the ability at times. It's quite dross when you watch it. It's like when we watch an Edinburgh derby, it's terrible. That's how English people must feel when they watch us at times. But for us, it's everything. We don't care if it's dross, as long as you get the result. But if it went one way or the other, I think I would be all right on whatever decision they went with. I don't really stand on either side on a strong point. I'd be happy with whatever way they went with it. Just not the 700, because I just feel as if it's all or nothing. Do the 8,000 or do nothing, because I don't see the point in 700. I don't get it. I know there might be rules with the SPL or the SPFL, sorry, and the rules that you have to give maybe 5% of the stadium or something like that. And I know Europe's a little bit more than that, but I would rather get rid of the 700 and make it 0, or make it the original allocation.
Thinking ahead to this game, I've been thinking about it for weeks and wondering what are the differences for that game at Celtic Park. Rangers were missing Morelos that day. Turns out they're missing him on Sunday as well. Diallo started wide for them on the right-hand side. Those are the two, in terms of personnel, those are the two big differences that I was thinking. Obviously, it's going to be the same. Morelos is out. You expect Roof to play in his place. They're not going to start Diallo again, because he looked like a rabbit in headlights that night. So they're the two big areas. I think they'll be different. In midfield, Jack came off the bench that night. Lundstrom wasn't involved. So you would expect those two to play on Sunday. But in terms of the right-hand side of their team, what do you think they're going to do? And is that a big concern for us, given that Greg Taylor's likely to start on the left-hand side for us? If they put Aribo there, he's taller in stature than Greg Taylor. Are they going to play Ramsey on the right-hand side? Sakala for pace? What do you think they'll do?
I would probably tend to say that they're going to probably go with Aribo. I said this outside the ground that day. I was shocked that they didn't put Aribo on Greg Taylor. Just simply down to the height of Greg Taylor is 5'5", 5'6", and Joe Aribo's in his 6 foot odds. So there's an outball straight away, and especially going to Celtic Park, when you knew Celtic were going to come out of the traps flying. That was the plan. If you were going to try and beat Celtic, was to get an outball, because they didn't have Morelos that night as well. And the never that was, I think he played nearly like a CDM role, which I was shocked at when I watched. He couldn't get up the park. So he will 100% play on the right-hand side for Rangers. 100% he will. They'll have Roof through the middle. Now, Roof offers a couple of different things to maybe what Morelos doesn't. And people will try and play it down and say, oh, it's all right, we've got Roof. You can play it which way you want, but Roof is not Morelos. Morelos might not have the goals in this game, but it's what he does off the ball at times. His antics comes with it.
Morelos' strength is physicality, right? You talked about our team at Ibrox the last time. Two players we never mentioned was Jota wasn't there for us, not involved at all, hadn't signed him yet. Or maybe had just signed him, but he hadn't joined up. Carter Vickers hadn't even signed him. Carter Vickers has been a rock, and in terms of physical battles this season, domestically certainly he's come out on top at a breeze, every single one of them. So I don't think Roof is as physical as Morelos, and I think that almost benefits certainly our centre-half pair.
Aye, it does, because, and even Giakoumakis, to be fair, because they three were signed on the last day of the window. So even Giakoumakis that's hitting form. The problem that Rangers are going to have is that, and they'll see it on Sunday, is that both our centre-backs are quick. They are quick, and I don't think Roof's the quickest up front. And Morelos is that type of person that will get the fouls, that wins the free kicks on the edge of the box, outside wide, and that's where our danger is when a ball comes in. We've seen it all season. We're not the best at defending set pieces. So for that, it's brilliant news from a Celtic end to not have Morelos, because he wins them. Even when they're not fouls, he seems to get them. He rolls about and the ref just buys it. With the crowd persuasion as well, things go your way a lot more. It just happens. That is just the fact of the game. But going back to that is Carter Vickers. I don't really think he would be too bothered with who he comes up against. You've seen it. He's very strong. He's probably our strongest player. Very good with the ball at his feet. He's very underplayed at times. I watched a clip of him. and it was like a 2-minute clip of just his games and the amount of times that he comes out with the ball at his feet and plays that, not even the easy pass to the side, it's somebody maybe through like two defending players and he'll play it through and Celtic go on the counter. Roof's not someone either that I don't really think that will go out and press. He likes the ball in at his feet and he likes to keep his energy reserved, and then he'll try and get into good spaces. He probably gets into better spaces than Morelos would, and he's technically better than Morelos, I would say. So that's a danger as well. But if I was to say who could I take out of the Rangers team, it probably would be Morelos. And it does sound crazy because he's got 2 goals, in like 18 games against us, which is terrible. But it is his outside play of everything else that he does and what it brings and the little fills that he gets and he wins that goes maybe against us. And you've seen it, we lost it to a set piece on Hollander. From a corner, we lost a set piece. So that's where we need to be defensively solid. And I think you'll get that with Starfelt. A lot of people for... How long was it that they were saying like Celtic's defence is still dodgy? It was like October,
Months,
November. You were still hearing that quote of...
Still hearing it turn of the year.
You were saying like that it's leaky defence, they'll leak goals. At the start of the season we did, but I've covered that.
We barely leak chances these days, mate.
Exactly. And you look, I think in the last, last 4 games, we scored 12 goals, conceded 1. And I listened to that interview that Ange Postecoglou done recently on Optus Sport. He says that he likes his teams to hit peak at the end of the season because obviously in that side of the world, that's what they do. They get to that level where it's really important games. That benefits as well, and you can start to see that. Ross County was going to be such a difficult match, I thought. Under Malcolm Mackay, they're flying as well, to be fair. The boy Charles Cook was flying. I mean, we just breezed them. Just pushed them aside. There was nobody there. There wasn't even a challenge.
And we've got 1 game a week now as well, so that's really helping us in it. It's helping keep the players fresh, more time in the training pitch. Aye. And I think you could see that against Ross County.
Aye.
See, just for us, right, thinking about our midfielder last time, it was McGregor, Hatate, O'Reilly. Mm-hmm. What would you go with? Obviously, I've said the Rangers midfield's probably going to be different because they'll probably start Jack and Lundstrom this time. That's certainly more physical. What midfield 3 for Celtic would you go with? And why?
See, there's an argument for if I change it, and there's an argument if I don't change it.
That's good problems.
It's exactly. We didn't have that at the start of the season, and this is why we are where we are, because we have options and players stepping up. McGregor's going to play, right? He's captain, obviously. He's going to play. He's going to play that holding role. Probably go with Rogic. I think I would go with Rogic, and I'll tell you why. Right, I'll go Rogic. I'd go Rogic simply down to I think he'll win you more fouls. I think he'll cause more problems for the likes of Lundstrom, who's going to want to go in physical. He's going to want to harm him. He's going to want to injure him, and I think he's got the experience of Ibrox and where he's been. I think being at Celtic Park, it's different because you're at home. Everybody's on your side, and Hatate and O'Reilly both played in that game on their debuts in that match. I just think it's a little bit different going across the city and getting flung into that. And Hatate, sometimes you've seen Hatate at times where somebody trips over and he helps him up. No helping anybody up in blue. You don't do that here. It's got to be fast paced. He's going to feel it dead quick, and I just don't think it's for O'Reilly and Hatate both to be put in the middle of that park against boys that are going to be experienced in this game. Lundstrom's not, but Ryan Jack is going to be very physical.
But are you saying that you would take out Hatate for Rogic, or that you would leave out O'Reilly for Rogic?
No, I would go Hatate and I'd go Rogic. So I'd go McGregor sitting with Rogic and Hatate. Just down to Hatate's got legs, he can run, he's good in the ball. And I think O'Reilly's a great sub to bring off the bench. Now, that'll be, people will be sitting there probably thinking, no chance, O'Reilly's got to play. And I can understand people's point of view, but just for me, Rogic has been there, he's done it. He's very good in these games at times as well. He always pops up with a wee goal here and there in these games.
It's been a couple of years, right enough, but aye.
Been a couple of years, but last time I remember he's got a few goals at Ibrox. I think he's scored two at Ibrox as well. So he's known for a wee goal, and he's drew one there as well, to be fair. So I would just go personally, that's who I would go with, but I wouldn't mind if he picks O'Reilly, to be fair.
He did have that fitness concern, Rogic, though, because he didn't go away with Australia. And obviously the manager's confirmed he is fit today, but for me, O'Reilly, apart from McGregor, obviously McGregor is absolutely cast iron, first name in the team sheet. O'Reilly's the player for me that we can't drop. He's got to play, Matt O'Reilly. I was reading recently about his pressing stats and how much intensity he brings compared with the rest of the midfield, and he's streets ahead every day. I think Hatate needs to play as well because he's the only one that's a sort of mix between 6 and 8 or 6 and 10, because Rogic and O'Reilly too similar. I don't think it's a game for Turnbull, and then the rest of the midfielders are out and out sixes. Beaton, McCarthy's never going to start. Ideguchi's nowhere near it. So for me, it's got to be O'Reilly, and I think that he'll play alongside him. The other thing, mate, just briefly on who's going to play through the middle. I'll do the starting 11 prediction tomorrow, but there is a bit of a split of opinion because Kyogo's back.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion, he's the best player in the squad. He's made an unbelievable impact this season. He gives us a totally different dynamic. But Giakoumakis in good form. Kyogo's been out a long time. Who do you go with through the middle?
Oh, Giakoumakis. Every day of the week. He actually scored a goal for Greece in the international break, but it given offside, and he was clearly onside, but there was no VAR in that. So he's coming back. That he's not scored a goal, but he has scored a goal in a sense, but it was wrongly chopped off. But he's got to go, because that would be like me saying, well, we'll play Turnbull as well. Then that just it doesn't fit. He's not had any match time. I think he's got maybe 10 minutes coming on against Ross County, but Kyogo's none. He's been out since that game. Just after Boxing Day, was
Johnson.
it? So he's been out since that game.
Day.
He's a great option to have on the bench. So when you look at the bench, one is going to be right, because either Rogic's on the bench or O'Reilly's on the bench, plus Turnbull's on the bench, plus Kyogo. You're starting to think we have got like-for-like replacements.
This is the thing. That's the strength and depth that we've not had for a long time. And there's a lot of debate about whether Maeda starts. Do you put Jota on the right-hand side, Maeda on the left, Giakoumakis through the middle? Does Abada start? But again, regardless of what option the manager goes with, it's a strong bench. There will be a strong Celtic bench on Sunday.
So what I think he'll go with is, I think he'll go Daisy Maeda on the left. I think he'll go Jota on the right. Now I'm thinking of Rangers are going to settle with Bassey at left back, very physical, very quick. I think Abada maybe might get lost in that game, maybe, but he might not, because he's done very well at Celtic Park.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just a different venue, it's a different atmosphere, and you need players to really step up and stand up. And I think he would probably trust Daizan more than probably Abada, because he knows him from Japan at Yokohama. He trusts him, and it's that pressing game. Now we know that Tav loves to get up that wing, and he will, because he's at home, so he'll feel like he'll have to, which then leaves that gap in behind, which pulls Goldson out there. Daisy Maeda will just be too quick for him, in my personal opinion. And then that leaves somebody like Jota as well that's maybe at the back post. And they can also switch. You see them switch a lot of the time as well. And people say Jota's not very good on the right, and I'd probably agree with that. As such, he's much better on the left. But against Ross County, he was actually very effective, very good on the right. So I think he'll probably go with Daisy Maeda on the left, Jota on the right. Would I go with it? I don't really know if I would go with it, but as you said, we've got great options that give us that choice. If we do go 1-0 down, we've got options to change where we didn't. And in many of these games, we never, even if you look back to the Celtic Park game, we didn't really have many options on that bench that day either. If Giakoumakis got injured, we didn't really have anybody.
Maeda had just come back
from Japan international duty. Rogic, I think he'd just get back from Australia, but it was like touch and go if he was going to even make the bench. And I don't even think he did make the bench that night. I can't remember, but now we do have the options that is going to be key. It's going to be key to win that game. When you look at maybe Rangers, and if they go 1-0 down, what options do they have that is going to come on and make an impact? Like people like Scott Wright. It's not the same as Scott Wright and Abada. It's not the same. Sakala and Kyogo. It's just not the same. And that probably shows you where we are and where they are right now. And that's why today's news, for me, feels monumental. It truly does. And maybe on Sunday night I'm sitting there and going, do you know what? I jumped the gun, or I'm sitting there going, I was right. But it's just massive to have these players back. And I think that if the game doesn't go our way, that we've got changes that will come on and can make it go our way. I don't really feel like Rangers have that option. It's their first 11, and if it doesn't work, they're kind of screwed and they need to hold out for a point, because it's more of a must not lose.
Well,
Rangers.
That's what I'm going to come to, right? Permutations, the different outcomes. We know that if we win 6 points clear, we're in a brilliant position to go on and win the title. Rangers need to win this. Rangers need to win this game on Sunday. So how do they approach it?
They'll approach it like we approached it. They'll go, do you know what? They'll be confident because of Europe. They've been good in Europe. everybody needs a bit of luck through Europe, and they've had luck at times as well, but they have been a good side in Europe. I can't sit here and lie about that, because they are where they are, but at the detriment of they're going to slip up in the league somewhere. They've got a lot of games coming their way. I think they've got 5 games in like the next 12, 13 days from Sunday onwards. It's a lot of football to be played, and you cannot just be keeping the same team, which Rangers normally usually do. So they could even have people that will drop off, that will get injured, and it will just be to our favour. It will help us out. We have that rest and recovery time. For Rangers, they'll attack us for the get-go, the atmosphere. Also, with quickly on it, because I don't want to talk too much about it, but with the Rangers bored and pulling out and making up excuses.
Maybe they'll try and do that with the game Sunday.
Like, they made excuses about that they weren't promised things, and the word old firm wasn't put across it. And then you see Optus Sport saying one of the supporting acts were pulled out. Brilliant, to be fair.
That's good banner.
And that's what it was, to be fair. Like, they were a supporting act, but on top of that is that Rangers will come out, they'll come out flying, they'll try and catch us cold. We need to be ready for the first 10, 15 minutes. They'll get very high up the pitch, and that's when we'll take our chances. I just believe, in my opinion, that's where we're at strongest. When teams attack, we can get in behind. Players like Jota, Anabadas and Rogic and O'Reilly's, they have the quality to open teams up. And I just think that it's one of these games where the fans are going to probably push them over the line for them, in their sense. They're going to try and get them as high up, and it's going to work out in our favour. And that's why, I went off there, but the board have done what they've done. They pulled out because they didn't want protests against them at this game. They know how crucial this game is. That's what I'm saying. I can feel it. It's like you can smell it, you can taste it, is that if you lose, league's done. And that's where it's coming from, because realistically, you need Celtic to drop and 3 games out of the last 5 in the split. It ain't going to happen. It just ain't going to happen. It isn't. And that's why they pulled out of this, because they didn't want protest and they didn't want the fans going against them. They need everybody to really work with them to get them over the line, because they can feel the pressure and the carrot that's dangling at the end of the season. They know that it's getting close. They're running out of games now. They're feeling that. This is why they've done that. But for me, Celtic just need to approach it normal. It's a normal game, and regardless of the result, we'll be top of the league at the end of that match, and that's what's most important. But it's one of these games where I feel Celtic are just going to pip it. I've just got a feeling that they are.
That was the last one before we finish up, mate. Just to round us off, how do you think it's going to go?
I think Celtic are just going to take it. I'm going to put it out there, and I think it's 498 games that we've played in the history, and I think it's only 5 times that the team scoring first going to lose the game. And I think that I'm going to say Rangers are going to score first, but Celtic will come back and win 2-1.
Wow.
Very like the Rodgers day when, was it, I think it was...
Sinclair scored the back post.
Sinclair scored the back post and 1-2 Dembele scored to make it 1 each. I think it's going to be very like that, very touch and go. I don't think it's going to be one of these games that's hell for leather in the sense of one team's going to dominate the other. I think teams are going to have different spells, and it's what you do within those spells. And I just don't think that Rangers are going to be at their peak. And a lot of the European games are because of Morelos. That's why they get it, especially the Dortmund games, especially. He tore Hummels apart. So for him not to be there gives Celtic a huge advantage. Celtic will smell blood. I definitely feel that, and I just think that we are going to edge it. I'll even give you goal scorers.
Wow.
I'll give you Giakoumakis is going to get a one-touch finish he'll get, and the second one is going to be a Carol Starfelt header late into the game.
Wow, never scored for Celtic.
Exactly, and it's going to be on Sunday, and then everybody that was on his back is going to get off his back. There you go. I'm going to put it out there.
Hopefully. There you go. That'll do us, folks. All roads lead to Sunday and that season-defining game. That's it for the preview show. Like this video, comment your own thoughts below. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I'll be back tomorrow with the starting 11 prediction. See you then. Cheers.